Welcome to Session 11 of the Georgia Pre-Examination Training Program. Before we begin the session, you need to have a copy of the pre-examination training form shown here. If you do not have a copy of this form, please pause this presentation and ask your supervisor for a copy. Once you have a copy, enter your information at the top of the form. Enter today's date on the date line for Pest Biology and Identification Part 1. You should also have some paper handy to write your responses for the review questions that will periodically appear during the presentation. The review question slides will have no narration. The Georgia Pre-Examination Training Program is protected by copyrights, and any recording, copying, sharing, or unauthorized use of any content included in the program is strictly prohibited. Your employer is using this presentation to help you prepare to pass the employee registration exam. The resource used to develop today's session is the Employee Registration Manual, Revised Edition, March 2018. The Employee Registration Manual is periodically updated. You should have a copy of this manual to study in order to take the employee registration exam. This manual, in addition to the rules of the Structural Pest Control Commission, are great reference sources while in the pest control industry in Georgia. The objective of this session is to present information that may be found on the Georgia Employee Registration Exam to employees who work in the structural pest control industry in Georgia. This session will cover the first section of Chapter 3 on pest identification and biology. The main topics for this presentation are arthropods and insects, basic insect biology, as well as information on some of the commonly encountered pests. Humans are our own worst enemies when it comes to creating conditions that allow pests to be present. These are referred to as conducive conditions. All organisms, including pests, must have food, water, and shelter, also called harborage, which give pests a place to live and hide. As a pest management professional, it is critical to properly identify the pest or pests and the conducive conditions that cause the pest to be present. Services offered by pest management companies can be placed into three major groups based on the pests being controlled. Services can be offered to control insects and other arthropods such as mites, ticks, and spiders, to control vertebrates, which includes rats and mice, and the last group of services are to control or prevent wood decaying fungi. All effective pest management programs should be based on the biology of the pest involved and the conditions that exist that allow the pest to be present. Different pests require different action plans. The arthropod group includes animals such as insects, spiders, mites, and ticks. These animals share some characteristics with humans, such as having a central nervous system, having striated muscles, which are attached to the inside of the exoskeleton of the arthropod, while our muscles attach to the bones inside our bodies, and bilateral symmetry, which means the left side of the body and the right side of the body looks the same. Arthropods differ from humans because they have segmented bodies and segmented appendages. They have an exoskeleton, which is the outside part of their bodies, which is made of a protein called chitin. Arthropods must shed their exoskeletons periodically in order to grow. Arthropods also have an open circulatory system, where the blood of the arthropod flows freely throughout the body without the benefit of having veins or arteries as in humans. And arthropod's central nervous system is a combination of a nerve cord, which connects to several different control centers or little brains, which are called ganglia. There is typically one ganglia per body segment in an arthropod. In order for an arthropod to be classified as an insect, its body must be divided into three sections. The head, which has one pair of antennae, the middle section called the thorax, which has three pair of legs and possibly as many as two pair of wings, and the abdomen. Insects are a diverse group of animals that make up about 85% of all species of animals found on Earth. Insects can be found living on the Earth's surface, in soil, and in water. They are found in all climates such as deserts, rainforests, hot springs, snow fields, and even dark caves where they can feed on a wide variety of food. Eventually, some insects end up in our living spaces where they may be considered pests. Insects can be classified as pests for a variety of reasons. Some can carry or cause diseases that result in illnesses or death to humans and animals. Certain insects can damage our structures, our food, and our clothing, while others may enter our homes. Some species of insects can produce large populations in the landscape areas that surround our buildings. Luckily for us, most insects go unnoticed and may be beneficial, such as honeybees, which pollinate our crop plants. Adult insects are divided into three superorders and 32 orders. Flies, along with mosquitoes, are in the order Diptera. Cockroaches are in the order Blootodia, and bedbugs are in the order Hemiptera. Additional ways to divide insect groups is by their habitats, their feeding habits, and the type of mouthparts they have. One of the most important ways to classify insects is the different types of development, which is called metamorphosis, by which they grow. Unlike humans, Insects have an exterior skeleton, which is called an exoskeleton. This exoskeleton gives an insect its physical appearance and is used in identification. An insect's exoskeleton cannot grow bigger as it is a rigid skeleton. This forces an insect to grow in stages called instars. For an insect to grow bigger during its developmental stages, it must shed this rigid exoskeleton. The shedding process is called molting. These moltings also allow the insect to change or transform from an egg to an adult insect. This entire process is called metamorphosis. Understanding the different types of metamorphosis allows us to design effective pest management strategies. There are several different types of metamorphoses in the insect group. All begin with the egg stage and then several immature instars, which are the stages between each molt. Depending on the type of metamorphosis, these immature stages are called larva, nymph, or naiad. There is one type of metamorphosis that also includes the pupal stage, which is a resting phase between the last immature instar stage and the adult stage. And the final stage is the adult insect. Most insects do not grow or change after reaching this adult stage, which is also when the insect is sexually mature and able to reproduce. The first type of metamorphosis is called gradual metamorphosis. Insects that develop by gradual metamorphosis have the immature and adult stages that look very similar in appearance. The adult stage is typically larger and is also sexually mature. But other than the larger size, there is not much difference between the different instar stages and the adult stage. Examples of insects that develop by gradual metamorphosis that you may encounter during your career as a pest management professional are silverfish, bristletails, and springtails. The scientific term used for this type of gradual metamorphosis is called a metaboly. The next type of insect metamorphosis is incomplete metamorphosis. Insects that develop by incomplete metamorphosis have immature stages that closely resemble the adult stage. The immatures and adults have three body regions, the head, the thorax, and the abdomen, three pair of legs, but the immatures do not possess wings. Not all insect species will develop wings, and only adult insects have wings. So if you encounter a flying insect, this is the adult stage of that species. Incomplete metamorphosis can be divided into two additional classifications. Parometabolous metamorphosis includes insects whose immature instars are called nymphs. All the nymphal instars and the adult insects live in the same habitats, have the same mouth parts, and feed on the same food material. Roaches, earwigs, and termites are just a small example of insects that develop by this type of incomplete metamorphosis. Hemimetabolous incomplete metamorphosis include insects whose immature stages are called naiads. Naiads live in water and are aquatic. The immature stages and the adult stages live in different habitats, may have different mouth parts, and feed on different food material. Examples of insects that develop by this type of incomplete metamorphosis are the dragonflies, the mayflies, and the stoneflies. You will seldom encounter these insects in a pest situation. The final type of metamorphosis is called complete metamorphosis. Insects that go through holometabolous metamorphosis have the life stages of egg, larva, pupa, and adult. This type of metamorphosis is where there is a drastic visual difference between the immature larval stages and the final adult stage. In addition, the pupal stage occurs between the last larval instar and the adult stage. This pupal stage is a resting stage, but where the larvae completely changes into the adult form. Insects that develop by complete metamorphosis are the ants, bees, wasps, butterflies and moths, beetles, fleas, and flies. There are over 1 million different species of insects. Luckily for us, only a few hundred are considered pests that need to be controlled. As a pest management professional, you should become familiar with the most common of these insect pests that will occur in your area. We will look at some of the more common insect pests on the next slides. Roaches develop by incomplete metamorphosis. Roach nymphs, which are the immatures, and adults live in the same area and feed on the same things. Animals that are most active at night are said to be nocturnal. Roaches are typically nocturnal, where they feed on almost any food item, making them omnivores. Adult female roaches lay her eggs in an egg capsule called an ootheca. The size and shape of these egg capsules can be used to identify the different cockroach species. The number of eggs and the size and shape varies between the different species of cockroaches. The German cockroach is the most common small cockroach infesting buildings in Georgia. Adult German cockroaches are 1/2 inches long, tan to light brown in color, with two dark stripes running lengthwise on the pronotum, which is the area on the back just behind their heads. These roaches have very short life cycles with the ability to develop from egg to an adult in somewhere between 6 and 12 weeks. Adult German cockroaches usually live between 6 and 9 months. The female German cockroach carries the egg capsule, or ootheca, until it is almost ready to hatch. Adult German cockroaches do have wings, but really do not have the ability to fly. You may see them flutter as they fall from higher surfaces to a lower surface. The American cockroach is a large roach with adults measuring up to 1 1/2 inches long. They are a dark to light reddish brown color with 2 light spots on the pronotum. Their long life cycles take from 4 to 15 months to complete. Adult American cockroaches can live between 1 and 1 1/2 years. These roaches prefer moist, dark areas associated with sewers, storm drains, and plumbing chases. The adults have wings and are good gliders, but cannot fly from a lower surface to a higher surface. The smoky brown cockroach is another large roach with adults measuring up to 1 1/4 inches long. They are a uniform dark brown color. Their life cycles take between 4 and 12 months to complete, and the adult cockroach lives for approximately 1 year. They are often found living outdoors in tree holes and move into structures during the spring and fall. Adult smoky brown cockroaches have fully developed wings and are excellent flyers. Adult brown-banded cockroaches are small when compared to both the American and the smoky brown cockroach. A brown-banded adult is about 1/2 inches long, are a light brown color with 2 lighter bands across the base of the wings and top of the abdomen. These roaches prefer drier conditions than the German cockroach and are not commonly found in Georgia. They typically complete their development from egg to an adult in 3 to 4 months. Adult roaches live for about 1 year. Adults have wings, but the wings of the female do not reach the tip of the abdomen, while the male's wings are longer. Brown-banded cockroach males are good flyers. Oriental cockroaches are 1 inch long and are a uniform dark brown to black color. They have long life cycles, completing the development from egg to adult between 6 and 12 months. Adults live up to 1 and 1 1/2 years. Adult female oriental cockroaches have short non-functional wings, while the adult male have wings that cover 3/4 of the abdomen. Neither the male or female oriental cockroach can fly. This roach prefers cool temperatures and does not do well in warm conditions. It is found in damp places such as basements and sewer lines. Other cockroaches that are often found as pests in Georgia include the brown cockroach, the Australian cockroach, and the Asian cockroach. All these cockroaches can carry diseases like the bacteria responsible for causing food poisoning, and all have been associated with being a cause of allergens as well as a trigger for asthma. Fleas undergo complete metamorphosis and have the life stages of egg, larva, pupa, and adult. The immature larval stages and the adult stage live in different areas and feed on different types of food. The adult fleas feed on the blood of warm-blooded animals, which are referred to as the host animal. Female fleas lay eggs while on the host animal, but these eggs fall off the animal and are mostly found where the host animal spends a lot of time resting. The immature larval flea looks like a legless worm and can be seen in this picture. The flea larvae feed on adult flea fecal material, which consists of undigested blood. The last larval instar spins a silk cocoon where they transform into the adult flea. These fully formed adult fleas can survive in the cocoon for an extended period of time until a suitable host animal is available on which to take their first blood meal. The cat flea is the most common flea found on cats, dogs, possums, raccoons, foxes, and humans. The cat flea adult is 1/8 to 1/16 inches long, dark brown in color, and is flattened from side to side and does not have wings. As mentioned previously, adult fleas feed on the blood of warm-blooded animals and are called obligate blood feeders. This means they are obligated to feed on blood as the only source of food available to them. The larval form feeds on organic debris, but prefers to feed on the undigested blood fecal material of the adult flea. Fleas can transmit diseases and parasites such as plague, murine typhus, and tapeworms. Ticks are arthropods, not insects, in that they have 8 legs and 2 body regions, the head and the abdomen. Ticks are obligate blood feeders that must take a blood meal in each life stage to become an adult tick. The ticks commonly found in Georgia have a larval stage that consists of 1 or 2 instars, a nymphal stage, which also consists of 1 or 2 instars, and the final adult stage. Each stage requires a new host that is usually larger in size than the previous host. Ticks find their new host animals by climbing up plants and waiting for a host animal to pass by. Ticks are flattened from top to bottom, the opposite of how fleas are flattened. The adult and nymphal stages of ticks have 8 legs, while the larval stages have 6 legs. They still only have 2 body regions. Ticks are obligate blood feeders in all their life stages. Certain species of ticks can transmit diseases, such as Lyme disease and Rocky Mountain spotted fever. The stored product pest includes several types of beetles and moths that go through complete metamorphosis. These stored product pests can be divided into 4 major groups based on their feeding habits. The internal feeders have immature larval stages which develop inside the kernels of whole grains or seeds. The external feeders have larvae that develop outside the whole grains or seeds, but are capable of feeding on both finished and unfinished food products like flour or cereal. The scavengers feed only on processed products previously damaged by the other 2 groups. And finally, the secondary pests, which feed on stored products that are old and moldy. Stored product pests can spread throughout and beyond the kitchen area of a structure and can be found anywhere stored food items are present. They may be brought in on dried flour arrangements and potpourri or infested food products purchased from a store. Stored product pest adults are typically small, usually less than 1 inch as adults, and even though they destroy food products, they are generally not considered a health problem. There are approximately 10 moth species that are considered structural pests. The immature larvae are called caterpillars and is the life stage that feeds on the stored food product. When a caterpillar is ready to become an adult moth, this last larval instar will move out of the food product in order to spin a cocoon where it pupates into an adult moth. As they feed, the larvae spins a spider web like silk that mats the food material together. This is a common sign of infestation. Most stored product moths are either external feeders or scavengers. Stored product moths include the Indian meal moth and the Mediterranean flower moth. Stored product beetle larvae and adults feed on the same food material at the same time. The common stored product beetles can develop from an egg to an adult in 1 to 6 months, although a shorter 2-month cycle is more common. Unlike moths, beetle pupae are not protected in a silk cocoon. These pupal stages can be found in the food product being infested. The stored product pest beetles that fall in the internal feeder category are the rice weevil, the granary weevil, and the lesser grain borer. Stored product beetles that fall in the external feeder category are the drugstore beetle, cigarette beetle, and the capra beetle. The stored product pest beetles that fall in the scavenger category are the sawtooth grain beetle, the confused flower beetle, and the red flower beetle. Stored product pests considered secondary pests include the mealworms, spider beetles, the sosids or book lice, and grain mites. The fabric pest group includes insect beetles and moths, which develop by complete metamorphosis with the life stages of egg, larva, pupa, and adult. Fabric pest damage is caused by the immature larval stages. They feed mainly on animal material such as wool, silk, fur, and feathers. They do not normally feed on cotton material, but can damage mixed fiber materials. The protein keratin is the substance on which they use as food. Keratin is found in dried hair or animal material such as wool and animal hides. Fabric pest moths lay their eggs on the fabrics on which the caterpillars will feed. Adult moths do not have working mouth parts and do not feed and therefore cannot damage fabrics. The only things the adult moths do is find a mate, lay eggs, and then die. Like the stored product pest moths, the last larval instar of the fabric pest moths move off the fabric to spin a cocoon to pupate into the adult moth. The two most common fabric pest moths are the case-making clothes moth and the webbing clothes moth. There are over 100 species of ants found in Georgia. All ants develop by complete metamorphosis, with the life stages of egg, larva, pupa, and adult. Ants are social insects, which live together in colonies. A single ant cannot survive on its own. It must be a part of a colony. Ant colonies are centered around the queen ant, which is the main reproductive female found in a colony. Egg, larva, and pupa are called the brood, which are cared for by the worker ants of the colony. During certain times of the year, male ants are produced to mate with new queens, usually during swarming events. After mating, males usually die within hours or days. All worker ants are sterile females, and the workers are the only members of an ant colony seen outside the nest, and only a small percentage of between 1 and 10% of the workers in a colony are outside the nest at any given time. Worker ants do all the work of the colony, including foraging for food and water, improving their nests, protecting their nests, taking care of the brood, and feeding and caring for the queen or queens in the colony. Adult ants cannot swallow solid food particles. Instead, the workers carry the food items back to the nest and feed them to the larval forms. The larvae process this food into liquids, which are then fed back to the workers and queens. This food sharing is called trophallaxis. Trophallaxis also occurs in termites. Depending on the type or species of ant, ants can be divided into groups based on how many queens there are in a colony. Ants can have a single queen in each colony or have multiple queens in each colony. Single queens can live for 10 years or longer, while queens of multiple queen colonies only live for about a year. Carpenter ants, some fire ants, and the acrobat ant have single queen colonies, while the Argentine ant, the odorous house ant, and the pharaoh ant have multiple queen colonies. Ants are social insects that live in colonies. Worker ants are sterile females, and depending on species can have stingers and may sting. The venom may cause an allergic reaction or anaphylactic shock in some people. Worker ants seen outside the nest are called foragers and are usually less than 10% of the total colony population. Most ant species will feed on a wide variety of foods, which is shared with other members of the colony through trophallaxis. Ants will typically recruit large numbers of workers to feed at a single feeding site or on a single food item. Ants can have four different types of castes in a colony: the workers, the brood, male ants, and females. Ants are considered pests and may possibly be a health threat by stinging, causing damage to our food, causing structural damage, injuring livestock and wildlife, and even causing short circuits in electrical equipment. Flies are insects that go through complete metamorphosis with the life stages of egg, larva, pupa, and adult. The larval stages are called maggots, and flies usually have 3 to 5 larval instars before turning into the pupal stage. The maggots and adult flies live and feed in different areas. Adult flies have one set of wings, and the name of the insect order, Diptera, that includes flies, actually means two wings. Their second set of wings have evolved to become balancing organs called halteres. As we have seen during our many presentations, most insects are referred to using a common name. When talking about the true flies, these common names are always written as two words. For example, housefly and fruit fly. If the common name of an insect includes the word fly, but the insect is not a true fly in the order Diptera, then the common name is written as one word. For example, dragonfly and stonefly. As a pest management professional, you will typically encounter flies that can be divided into three groups: the small flies, the nuisance flies, and the biting flies. Flies in the small fly category are less than 1/2 inch long as an adult. Small fly maggots typically feed on rotting fruit, decaying organic matter, dung, or fungus. Females lay eggs on or near the larval food, and they typically have short life cycles, with some being able to develop from egg to adult in approximately 1 week under optimal conditions. Flies in the small fly category include the fruit flies, the moth or drain flies, fungus gnats, humpback flies, and eye gnats. The nuisance fly group are typically medium-sized flies with adults averaging around 3/4 inch long. The maggots feed on dung or rotting dead animal and rotting plant material, and they have short life cycles similar to the small flies, with the ability to go from egg stage to the adult stage in as little as 1 week. Nuisance flies are typically strong flyers, which can travel many miles in search of breeding sites, mates, and food. Nuisance flies includes the house fly, the face fly, the flesh fly, and the cluster fly. The biting flies include multiple species of flies, most being small to medium-sized adults. Some species have maggots that typically feed on dung or rotten vegetation, while others are filter feeders that live in water. In this case, the maggots are called wrigglers. Some biting flies can transmit diseases when the adult female fly takes a blood meal, which is required for her to produce viable eggs. The biting flies include mosquitoes, horse flies and deer flies, the stable fly, and the biting midges. This concludes session 11. Please let your supervisor know that you have completed this session.